Hey! Oh, I think I pulled something there. Jay Burr coming at you here. The Wolves Den, one of our good friends of the show here. Y'all know him. There's me. Jeremy Harper. You know him better as A-State Fan Rules. Get at him on the Twitter, all that other good stuff here. He's got wonderful things. We're doing things a little fancier today. We have a table because, he wanted to bring his tiny television in here.
I requested the table.
That's right.
That's my fault.
This is what you do when you come in the den. We do our best to help you. We don't have a green room, but this is the next best thing here.
Yeah.
And we have to talk about these sort of things because it's been a tough scene out here for the basketball programs. It was another tough weekend. We knew on the men's side it was going to be a little tough. Women's side, it was kind of 50-50. 0-4 on the weekend, though. 0-4.
Five straight, but isn't it five straight? Isn't
Five
it
straight for the men,
yeah.
4 straight for the women. We'll get to the gals here in just a minute, but let's stick to the men here. Taking on the Texases this past week. One of actually both the Texas teams aren't bad, so not surprising they went 0-2. I think it's more the manner in which they went 0-2 that is more disappointing. Really not in either game.
But in the same way, it was like kind of we faced them early on in the season at home, and they both beat us early at home after it looked like we are going to have this promising season.
Yeah.
And after that, after getting swept by the Texases at home, it's actually jump-started us to the season, having a pretty good run there. So I don't know, maybe that jump-starts us this time. But
Yeah.
You're right. There's something about the Texases that we can't overcome.
Not whatsoever. And again, like I said, they weren't very competitive in either game. Now, in the Texas State game you're seeing here, the score looked a lot better than what that game was. They made a pretty fevered push at the very end when the thing was pretty well decided already. But to me, that's the biggest concern of this team.
Yeah, 13 points in the first half. That's just not going to cut it. There just doesn't. We've seen this happen to Red Wolves teams before, where they'll get to about 15 wins, and it looks like that maybe they have something going on. Maybe they can make some waves in the tournament. Who knows? Maybe even somehow slip into the NCAA tournament, and then they just poop out. It's like they run out of steam, they run out of energy. We've seen Red Wolves teams start off pretty well and then lose the last 10.
Yeah.
So McCaslin's team was the same way, where they were stuck something on like 19 wins forever.
For the longest time.
And just kept on losing. And it's simply because I feel like the team just gets exhausted at the end of the year, and I do not understand why.
And part of that, too, is do we feel like it's because the comeback victories are great, and you get a couple that are, some big double-digit deficits, but it seems like it's every single game, and a lot of times you're expelling a lot of energy trying to come back in those games, and that's why we've seen some of these comeback efforts fall short, I feel.
We were talking about earlier, Jay, it would be so nice if at one point the Red Wolves would start hot, stay hot all the game, and then finish hot.
Yeah,
but
maybe
that never
win
happens.
comfortably.
Yes. That never seems to happen. Sometimes we start off pretty hot and then get really cold.
Yeah.
Most of the times we start off cold and have to build up and try to get back, which is exciting. It's been exciting for the fans.
In a way, yeah.
Well, it was for me.
Yeah.
I do enjoy comeback wins just as much as the next guy, but it would be nice to have a period of time where you can have a team that you can rely on.
Yeah.
That you can hope that they're going to execute in ways that it's consistent week after week, and this team just isn't consistent. And early in the season, or actually early through the midpoint of the season, I felt like we had a consistent team. And teams past, we always relied on the one guy who could bail us out with a fired up shooting.
Yeah.
This year, we've got guys that just average between 12 and 9 points, and it's like 5 guys. So any one of those guys can kind of help you out. So it's very evenly distributed.
Yeah.
So I don't really understand right now why that even distribution hasn't led to wins in the last 5 games. There's something going on that I'm just not seeing. I know that some of the guys just don't look the same as they did early on. It seems like Matthews has 3 fouls starting off every game. It's like he enters every game with 3 fouls.
He's been a bit of a goon here recently.
I don't mind having some gooniness going on. You need a tough guy, but good God, it's like he's heading towards the bench after 2 minutes every game. Coos doesn't seem himself right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's lost his confidence. Sometimes his three ball just looks awful, and then
it looks flat a lot.
Yeah.
It's almost like his legs aren't there.
Yeah, which maybe they're just tired. So I don't know. They come home.
Well, that's interesting. You bring up sort of the exhaustion. I mean, they run a fairly deep bench. It's not like a 7-man rotation or anything. It's just and I know there's some freshman growing pains in there as well, and some of that is to be expected from a couple of the guys in there. But even Eggleston has kind of, I don't want to say cooled off because he's putting up numbers, but they're bulk numbers, and there's no efficiency, and maybe that's what I'm trying to get at, is this team hasn't been very efficient.
I think a lot of the fans expected Eggleston to come in and really be that superstar spark that got everything going. And he does have energy. He does come out there and play hard, but for whatever reason, there's always, he and Matthews especially, there always seems to be a missed layup or a jumper that's just not going in. And so it's a lot of execution at the end that just doesn't seem to be there for the Red Wolves.
And I know, to me personally, and this is something I've harped on with this team, and I know they've kind of gone up and down, and I think overall they're okay when it comes to free throw shooting, but to me they just miss timely free throws. Again, I've harped on this for a few weeks now. It's front ends of 1-and-1s, and even against Texas Arlington, not that it mattered or anything, but 60%, and when you have free shots, I mean, come on, you got to hit at least 80%, in my opinion.
And you're right, Jay. Statistically, they seem to be having a pretty good season at the free throw line, but it does seem like at very compelling moments when you really need something to go down, you'll see 2 missed free throws.
Yeah.
And you're just like, why? You just don't understand. And again, maybe that's legs. Maybe that's the end of the season. You're just very tired. But really, at this point of the season, every team's tired.
Yeah.
Some teams seem to pick up energy at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Red Wolves never seem to pick up energy. The only time I really saw energy was during the Little Rock game, which I attended.
You got your rivals. There you go.
Great energy. Both teams really wanted it. Both teams looked just as good as the other one.
Yeah.
Everybody was playing well. The three-pointers were going in. The defense was on point. The thing that separated the winners from the losers from that game was about maybe a 30-second burst of scoring from Little Rock
before the end of that first half. Yeah.
That was sort of it. We never could overcome that one burst of scoring, but seeing that game made me pretty excited about what was to come.
Yeah.
And going into Texas, I know we have a hard time with these Texas teams. There's just some sort of magic, some sort of dark sorcery that prevents us from having a good game against them. But I thought maybe this is what it turns the tide, and it wasn't. It really wasn't.
Well, the tide is turning. Unfortunately, it's turning the other way here. Let's take a look at the standings on the men's side. Little Rock still holding down that top spot, although they also struggled down there at Texas this past week as both the Arkansas teams took on the Texas teams and just kind of flip-flopped them there. So that game, that lead has now shrunk to 1. You see the Georgias right there behind them. Texas State, the aforementioned Texas State, they've really gotten hot here the past couple of weeks.
Texas State, they started the season extremely slow. In fact, I felt like they were one of the worst teams in the conference. When we faced them at home and they beat us, I was quite dismayed to see that. To me, the biggest surprise on that whole list is Appalachian State.
Oh, yeah.
Historically, Appalachian State just hasn't done well. And they swept Red Wolves this year. They swept
take a number, it feels like.
Yeah, they swept Georgia Southern this year.
Yeah, which is impressive.
They remind me of a Troy team that went to the NCAA tournament a couple of years ago when they had Bernardo and Wesley Person was their shooter.
Yeah.
So they had like this one great shooter, and they had one big guy who could also clean up stuff in the middle with Bernardo. I feel like Appalachian State is almost that same team. And if Appalachian State somehow made a run in the tournament and got into the NCAA, tell you the truth, that wouldn't surprise me very much.
Not at all.
Part 2.
And really, that top 5 right now looking fairly formidable. I mean, Little Rock plays. I've said for the season they're very chameleon-like. They tend to adapt to whatever the style is, because I've seen them win shootouts. They can grind games out, so it's very interesting. Georgia State, Georgia Southern do what they do, and then Texas State usually plays some pretty good defense, and they can barely outscore you, but they'll clamp you down.
And it's the Sun Belt, Jay, so any one of those teams could go, or none of those teams could go. If ULM won the tournament, would it be that shocking?
And there you see South Al is starting to pick things up.
Yep.
Texas Arlington, a lot better position. And then I think from this point on is when you start to see teams that are kind of beginning to cave. Coastal Carolina looked good early on. Arkansas State, same way. Louisiana, they've never really been in it. And then you've got Troy and ULM who've kind of never done much either.
ULM is not going to win the tournament. That's just
probably not.
But you know what? Louisiana's had some good games, so
they have.
You never know what they're going to do
against Arkansas State.
That's true, but Arkansas State.
I'm very pessimistic about the team this morning. I'm usually not this bad, but
all right.
5-game losing streaks will do that to you.
So I think everybody's feeling the pressure on that,
as they should.
And I know Mike Bellotto put out a tweet after the game against Texas State.
He did.
And the tweet essentially went something like this: "Hey guys, don't lose faith in the team. We're going to get it together. This team is still, with it. We're going to turn it around." Which I appreciate the sentiment.
I do. Yeah.
Some coaches would just sort of bury their heads in the sand. He sort of stuck himself out there.
Yeah, but I think where we see a lot of the frustration, and I've seen several others put this out there, is it seems like it's just an eternal rebuilding process. There's never that team where I'm not saying you have to make the tournament, but you have to be in contention to be in the tournament. You have to be one of those top 4 type of teams, and we just have not seen that in so long with this Red Bulls, even with talent.
Offline, we talked about Little Rock and how if for the last 7 years they're up, they're down, they're up and down.
They're very roller coaster.
When they get down, they find some way to get back up.
And very quickly.
Arkansas State, they just seem to be down. Even in that Magic McCasland year.
Yeah.
That was a struggle, and we failed at the end. Didn't make it through the tournament, had a long losing season, and then ultimately ended up losing the coach. So I think for Red Wolves fans, it's been a 20-year wandering the desert. And like every year when we start off the season, I say, I just want 20 wins. Now that's kind of a big deal.
It's a lot of wins for college basketball.
But I want 20 wins. That's what I want. Jay, that's what I want. I want 20 wins. So every year we get to, not every year, some years we just don't even get close.
You understand now.
But just like this year, we got to the 15th win, and I did the math. It's going to be hard. You had to win 5 out of 7 or whatever it was.
Right.
But it felt like this team was going to do it. And
even when you got to 10 right before New Year's Day, and it was a big deal, like, this is the quickest they've ever gotten to 10
we could see
wins.
Happen here.
You had to think, all right.
And that big win against Tulsa, which at the time it was like, it's Tulsa. Well, Tulsa turns out to be a pretty damn good basketball team. So you look back on that and you say, this team has elements. You can see Bellotto and his sorcery and his dark magic, the things sort of coming together.
Yeah.
And so if you're a little patient, maybe next year, maybe the year after, I know you don't want that patience.
Yeah.
But why not? We've been waiting for 20 years. We've been waiting for 30 years.
What's another year or two once you've waited 20?
We might as well. But I really do believe, and there'll be people that disagree, but I believe that Bellotto does have something going on here. He's finally getting some of his players. I like a lot of the players.
Yeah.
I like some of the guys. There's a guy named, I suddenly can't remember. He's Al Conway. He's a good scorer. That I like he's coming.
That's a good in-state signing.
I like getting Arkansas guys. So maybe we'll begin to see. But yeah, it is frustrating to see Little Rock be able to overcome the same obstacles we have to overcome, and they just seem to overcome them no matter what.
Yeah.
So, and maybe that's because they can focus a little bit more on basketball.
Could be.
I mean, that's why we have UTA. That's why we have UALR in the league, is to be good at basketball. Good for them. I'm glad they're good at basketball, but sometimes we need to be good at basketball.
Yeah, when it's one of your big dogs.
It needs to be our turn pretty soon.
Yeah, same thing on the diamond as well. We'll get to them here momentarily. Let's switch it over to the women's side because I feel like I do feel like it's a mirror image of what's happening with the men. It's just they've run out of steam, they've run out of gas. They were not competitive in either one of these games. I mean, they got blown out and by a Texas. Now the UTA, okay, they're solid. You know, bad games are going to happen, especially in year one. But Texas State not very good on the women's side, but they got beat down. I was thoroughly stunned at that result. Maybe not so much the loss, but they got worked over.
Yeah, I'm no expert when it comes to women's hoops, but I have been watching from a sort of a cold distance because I didn't really expect much from the women's hoops team.
Sure.
and they won their first game, and they won it pretty excitedly. I was there for the game. I thought, okay, well, they've got some shooters. They got a little bit of size on the inside, not a whole lot of size. So I thought, okay, well, this could be a team. And then the out of conference was pretty bad. You know,
it was rough.
It looked like
it was a rough start.
If we win 5 games, that'll be a miracle. And then came off to that hot start in conference.
Yeah.
So which was great. Okay, maybe we can do something. So yeah, it's almost the same thing. I feel like the women's team has been a little bit of a different animal the last 20 years than it has been the men's team.
Yeah.
The women's team has seen some success. Now they haven't gone to the tournaments that they need to go to.
Right.
They haven't risen over that hump. But there's at least have given us hope. This year now seems like we're just back in that rebuild stage. You got to give new coach a couple years.
Sure.
You got to give him a chance.
Is this one of those things too where they were overperforming and then, you know, we were talking before we started here, kind of regressing to the mean, and now we're starting to see that? Because if you look at their statistics, I mean, they're not a very good team on either side of the ball. There's a couple of stats that they perform a little higher in, namely getting to the free throw line. That seems to have been the women's team's bread and butter, regardless of who the coach is.
Yeah.
But other than that, frankly, they're just not very good statistically.
No, and
but they've gotten some wins that they maybe shouldn't have. A couple losses in there that, maybe they shouldn't have gotten those either. But things seem to sort of be evening out.
Yeah, pretty much the same thing with the men. They weren't supposed to be good. They turned out to be better than we thought, and now it's sort of coming back to where they maybe it all should have been in the big game. So, you know, the women's team, I think we got to wait a couple of years, see what comes up, see what kind of talent that coach signs. But yeah, it might be another wandering through the desert when it comes to the women's hoops team.
But there is some hope there, considering, you know, you have a new coach, kind of new way of doing things, and they were able to scrap out some wins.
Yeah, and the two Paytons can, you know, they can shoot the rock when they can get hot. You know, and basketball too is a game of streaks. Whether it's a game, you suddenly have, you know, these 20-point outbursts or whatever. But it's also a game of streaks when it comes to just winning. You know, you'll see 5. Hopefully you don't see more than 5 losses in a row, but maybe you will. I don't know. So for the women's team, you know what? I'm going to give them a pass on this season. I can't give Villado a pass on this season because it's what, year 3, year 4.
See, I think that's where you're going to see the debate start to spark. At least on the men's side, it's like year 3.
Yeah.
You should have some of your guys in there to run the things the way you want to run them, and it's just not working.
It's not working, but it's working better than it has in the last couple of years. And that is
true, though.
And there are things that you can look at, especially a guy like Caleb Fields who comes in. And you can see this guy could really lead the team into something in the next few years. Get some of these new guys in. If we can get some bigs that have a little touch beneath the basket.
Yeah. Like one of those stretch guys that everybody's ranting and raving about.
I love, who's our guy in the middle now? Not J.J. Matthews,
Brevard.
Yeah, Brevard. Love seeing Brevard when we get him in the middle. He comes in there, he makes the layup. He's one of those guys, if we feed that guy in the middle constantly, we do pretty well.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes we forget Brevard's there. So
it does seem to feel like he sort of comes and goes.
Yeah, it's like, where's Brevard? He should be under there.
Exactly.
So for whatever reason, that play isn't always working.
All right, I kind of forgot to mention this here. We'll go back to the men quickly here. Looking ahead to this week, hosting Monroe and Little Rock. One of those weird schedule things that the Sun Belt cooked up here. And then the week after that, on the road at Louisiana. So there you go. But we'll focus on this week here. You've got a rival game. And you've got Monroe, a team that's struggling. Both these games at home for the men. You'd really like to see at least a split, but 2-0, I think is much needed right now, especially considering where they're at. And then when we start getting into conference seedings and stuff like that, is going to start playing a big role. It's that time of year.
Yeah, it's not just the seedings to go in on a. Let's say they lose all 3 games, to go in on a 8-game losing streak, we might as well just not even attend the tournament. But if they're able to go ahead and get things right with ULM, which they should.
They should.
Yeah, and if they don't. If they don't, we're going to be in trouble. If you can't beat ULM at home, we're going to have a hard time. Now, that Little Rock game, if the crowd's good, if the crowd's energized, I'm playing. Actually, I can't be there. But if I were there.
You'd be there in spirit.
Yes, I would be there in spirit. But I feel like we could win that game. Just watching that game in Little Rock a couple weeks ago, you could see that there was a great opportunity for us to win. All the skills were there. All the elements were there. We just weren't able to execute. Maybe some home, maybe a little bit of home magic will help pull that out. And there's no reason why we can't beat Louisiana either. So a 3-0 is not. I always say these things because I'm optimistic about my Red Wolves. But 3-0 to me is not that unreasonable. I think Little Rock has been shown that they can have chinks in their armor. The game that we showed in the game against Texas State showed that they can be beat. So if we can get these wins and come into this tournament with some momentum, maybe we pick up some wins. Maybe we build on that for next year. Absolutely, because I do think the byes are now bygone when it comes to the tournament. Yeah, it's the double bye not there. I think even the single bye is pretty much. So they're going to have to do. How do they do it now? The 4-4, 3-3. It changes every year. I don't know.
Yeah, so however the format is. On the ladies' side, a couple of South Alabama and Troy. So they're down there in Alabama. Again, one of those where USA, it's kind of a toss-up game, and but they've always played them well, which is very odd because usually you don't say that about the Red Wolves playing anybody well. It's always somebody tends to play well against them, and then Troy. Oh boy, Troy. They are. But they did knock off Coastal Carolina earlier in the year, so that's. And I think that was one of those weird things with this team where I think people kind of, maybe there's a little extra magic there, but again,
they're going to have to find magic, and they're going to have to find energy. I think the ladies are just as worn out as the men.
Yeah.
And if they don't see much hope at the end of the tunnel, which I feel like the women, especially the expectations for the women were even lower than the expectations for the men.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's in some ways there might just be let's just get through the season and then reevaluate and see what's going on. So really, my expectations for the women aren't near as hopeful as I have for the men.
Sure.
But I have been wrong. I can see the two Paytons just coming out there and totally taking over. So we'll see.
And again, they beat Coastal this year. So who knows with this team? Who knows what's going to happen?
It's the Sun Belt. You never know. It's Sun Belt entropy. We have no idea.
Yeah, and we forgot to throw up the women's standing. So let's go ahead and do that now. Again, you're seeing Troy, Coastal Carolina starting to really flex on this thing. Who do we have there? We also had Little Rock. There they are.
I was like, where are those standings?
Texas Arlington, one of those teams. So not a big surprise that they lost that game. You see Little Rock kind of starting to even things out a little bit. And then there's that South Alabama game. So that's a huge game when it comes to seedings and all that. Because, they're sitting there at the 7 seed. Not a lot of separation between that 5 seed and all the way to 10.
Right, all that could collapse at any moment.
Yeah, for anybody, for that matter, too.
Right.
So,
Arkansas State can come in if they get hot. They could actually increase their standings a little bit and be in a pretty good shape. So let's find out. It might be time to put a little bit more effort behind these women.
That's right,
and pay a little bit better attention because the expectation was pretty bad, and the start of the season was pretty horrendous. Now suddenly, maybe they have a shot at doing something. So maybe
winning a game. If they were to win a game in this tournament, I think that shatters all expectations.
That would be a huge win for the new coach.
And then you saw the Georgias down there, and then Texas State and ULM bringing up the rear, and I think that's why that.
What's going on?
Apparently not basketball for that matter. But Texas State, another one of those teams where it's like, man, that's just 3-10 in conference, get wiped out by them. But they did beat Little Rock too, so there's something to be said for that. So
they just have some kryptonite against us on either gender.
It's always something. Yeah, it's always something here. Let's quickly get to the diamond here, just because it's that time of year, and I know that's one of your favorite things. You and Rex online love to talk about college baseball.
Rex has a little problem with college baseball. I like it. I enjoy the walks and the wild pitches just as much as the next guy.
Sometimes they work in your favor here. They took on Stephen F. Austin this past week. This is just highlights of the Sunday game, which is a wild one. So you get to the the rubber match here, and there's one of those.
I think there's a grand slam involved.
There was a grand slam here, but look at those fundamentals right there.
That's what you want to see.
I guess this has been another one of these teams where they just cannot seem to figure it out. They have these streaks, and I think it was 3 or 4 years ago where they won their opening series or one of their first couple series against the likes of Louisville.
Yeah.
Very good team.
Very exciting.
A semi-northern team, and I know a lot of people like to use that as an excuse of, oh, this is why, because Arkansas State's up north. There's a lot more teams that play a lot more northern that are really good. Indiana's been very good. The likes of Louisville, Kentucky, some of these other teams like that.
Michigan do well, yeah.
Yeah, Michigan. So let's throw that whole we're north and it's cold out the window here. But again, another one of these teams that just, by golly, just cannot seem to figure it out. It looks like they have the pieces, and they always are good for a tournament run.
Yeah.
But they just can't seem to get there with it.
Here's one thing that goes on with base. This year, I think they were picked to finish,
I believe dead last in the West.
In the division. So you look at that, and automatically fans just sort of slump their shoulders, and oh my God, it's going to be another one of those years. But you know what? Opening up the season with a series win against Stephen F. Austin. I don't know if Stephen F. Austin has ever been a major power, but they're a Texas team. Yeah. So they have plenty of talent that they can.
And the one thing too, I want to just kind of interject here quickly is the starting pitching looked good.
Yeah.
Now, granted, opening weekend it's cold, but opening pitching is opening pitching. Even had a Benton Bryant guy in there too.
It feels like we have a lot of Arkansas guys on the team too, and that's nice to watch. That's fun to watch, and to see the team like not start off 0-3 on a season that we're supposed to be dead last. Okay, well maybe it's a little bit like the basketball where we're going to be like, oh well, we got some excitement, but the baseball program really is a program that even more so than basketball. There needs to be something that jumpstarts the program, and I'm not talking about a new coach or new players or any of that. I'm talking about maybe we need new facilities. We need an injection.
I know the facilities have been brought up by many.
We need an investment in baseball.
Yeah.
We invest in other programs, and that's fine. We're a small school and can't invest in everything.
Sure.
But if we ever want to have a decent baseball program, something's going to have to give when it comes to just putting a little bit of money.
Someone is going to have to give.
Yes. I don't know what it is, but that has to happen. Until then, we just have to enjoy a series win over Stephen F. Austin, or maybe an occasional good game against Ole Miss, which I know I think they're coming back again this year. And
they got the home and home the midweek, and the midweeks are weird in college baseball.
And then maybe, every now and then we have a mid-season spark where we have a couple of series wins in a row. And we're like, maybe we're back. Maybe we're a lot better than we thought we were. We're
Could
not.
be.
And then the tournament comes and we wreck some seasons for some people, and that's always enjoyable.
Now, is it one of those things, too, where it's just, like you said, it just seems like the baseball program has just been stagnant. And here we are, and granted, we're kind of jokingly saying it, but it does seem to follow that blueprint every year. I mean, they seem to have maybe a decent win or two early on in the season, and then conference comes. Now, granted, the Sun Belt is a upper tier baseball conference. I don't care what anybody tries to tell you.
It's true.
It is true. Yeah, this is a traditional. Now, granted,
you're just gonna have to accept it.
Well, they don't get the love when it comes to the postseason. Now, granted, last year the conference as a whole was a little down. But traditionally, they're usually good for 3 teams in the tournament, and when a lot of the upper the resource conferences have really started to invest in the baseball end, and you're kind of starting to notice that. Yeah. They're starting to sort of eat up a lot of the bids when it comes to.
You can tell there seems to be a lot more interest just in the College World Series lately. And
there is.
It's generating money, it's generating interest, and people say, hey, we got an opportunity to make our schools make a mark here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why you get a Missouri State that does so well. They come out and they make noise. That's why Coastal Carolina did so well.
Yeah.
Came out of the blue before they were in the Sun Belt, won the whole thing, because you can do that with a program if you're willing to invest a little bit of money into it.
Yeah.
But where do you find that money when you're trying to have an all-star football team, you're trying to rebuild a basketball team?
Yeah.
Maybe someday have a softball team. That would be great. I keep hearing rumblings about that.
Wink. I hear it's all part of the whole new baseball complex and all that.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I would love to see from the program. Not necessarily the softball team. That would be great. But just somebody to come out with a plan and say, even if they were like, hey, this is our 20-year plan. Yeah, here
well,
it is.
We saw too that when Malzahn was here coaching, they had a plan. Now, granted, that plan evolved a lot, and it was much different than when that plan started. But I'm with you. I would like to at least see we have an idea. Here's
Yeah.
what it looks like, and we'll see if we can get there at some point. And like you said, it might.
It might. I
Charge
know
up the
that
fan base.
a couple of years ago, the athletic director came up with this idea of putting a baseball stadium somewhere in the city, not on campus. And that was like, it was a weird idea. It was for me. Some people thought it was
Yeah.
a great idea. Some people were like, what are we even thinking? But at least you got people talking.
Yeah.
And then that idea just kind of evaporated and vanished. And
Sure.
there was really no put forth of any
Well, I don't think
ideas
the school
afterwards.
was really keen on the downtown idea.
No, and I didn't blame
Now,
them.
it's
I'm like,
my last I heard of it anyway, so take that for what it's worth, was there would be a new baseball stadium kind of where the outdoor practice field is for football.
Yeah.
And then you kind of do
then the
some semi-renovations to the softball team.
Yeah. But see, that's the thing. It's always rumors. And, well, this
That's
is what I
true.
heard. This is what this guy's saying. This is what that guy. There's nobody that comes and puts out a press conference and goes with like a little model of a
Yeah.
baseball stadium and says, this is what we're looking for. We're doing a pledge drive. We're doing a fund drive.
Yeah.
That's what we did with when Malzahn started. We had a huge fund drive. Did we make all those goals? I think we made a lot of them. And then, as you can see, the football stadium has become what it is today. So I think you can do that with baseball because I think there is actually a real hunger for baseball in Northeast
There is, I
Arkansas.
do believe so.
There
Kara
is-
Ritchie being the
That's right.
carrier of that banner.
Yeah, and she is not alone. There is just like in basketball, I feel like both in Northeast Arkansas, there is a hunger for both of those teams to succeed.
Yeah.
And if you could find some way to just get some leadership behind those programs to start saying, okay, we're going to put a little focus on them, I think we're going to see a lot of improvement.
All right, so there you have it here. Early baseball forecast right here. It's going to be cold. There's going to be some walks, and there might be a pass ball or two.
Yeah, you
But
think
hey,
so?
they're 2-1,
Yeah.
and that's really what matters. I believe Ole Miss also this week. I forget who the.
Oh, is Ole Miss this week? Okay.
I believe so. The at Ole Miss, so they're at Oxford on Tuesday. We'll see how that goes. That one.
Yeah, Ole Miss is pretty salty. I think they're a top 20 team this year.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah, well, it's a good chance to get some RPI points.
There you
So,
go.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
the
we'll
spirit
probably do
here.
that, Yeah.
They jumped up real big when they beat Louisville.
Yeah.
a few
Speaking
years
of
ago.
beating Louisville, yeah, they're pretty high on the. That's why we're going to get them actually, because they're going to be riding that Louisville high. They're going to forget all about Arkansas
4
State.
years
We're gonna
ago.
come away with a win. So yeah.
That's right. Jeremy Harper, A-State Fan Rules. You know him on the Twitter machine. He's glorious in banter, if you will.
thanks.
What else do you have going on?
Just check me out on college football news. It's a little quiet on the football front, of course, but I'll be trying to cover a little bit of basketball later on, especially when the tournament comes. So,
So should be a quick trip down
no,
basketball.
it's going to be a very deep.
Deep March Madness
and then,
run.
then whoever gets in the Sun Belt, because to me the Sun Belt is it's going to be a big surprise. It's always all the entropy. It could be Georgia State. They seem to be the team, or Little Rock. I don't know if it's Little Rock because I feel like they're kind of new.
Sure.
Georgia State's had a little bit of continued success, but as we know with the Sun Belt tournament, like I said, it could be a ULM.
You never know.
It's not going to be ULM.
They try to stack the deck for the higher teams, but it never seems to always work that way. It's
it never
wild.
does. So it's going to be exciting.
So there you go, and that's all that really matters here. All right, so that's this week. Next week, we kind of put a bow on basketball season. There you go. Make sure you follow me on the Twitter machine as well, and we'll hopefully get to see everybody in New Orleans.
Yeah,
And that's really the key here because they've moved it. It's more in New Orleans instead of out there in Metairie.
Yeah.
We've talked about where the tournament's at ad nausea here on the Wolves Den here. So we'll just put that in the past here. And we'll put a bow on basketball season next week. And then tournament time. We'll see what happens. Get into baseball, golf, all those other sort of off sports that are doing very well.
Yeah, I can't wait to cover the golf team and the bowling team. Yeah,
The bowling team,
they
yeah,
just
the
came
track
off
team's doing well.
The bowling team just came off a good tournament, so so I'm excited about bowling. I'm always excited about bowling. So and rugby had a
They
great,
knocked
great
off
team
number
up
one.
alive.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things going on in Arkansas State. It doesn't just have to be basketball and baseball.
Yeah. So we'll figure out a way to kind of get more of them involved here because they're doing good.
Yeah, we should cover those guys.
Absolutely here. All right, for Harper, I'm Burr. We will see you guys next week. Or I will anyways. I don't know about that. Let's see.